You know, there's a profoundly strange phenomenon unfolding right now. Across the world, countless individuals are grappling with a heavy, nameless sense of urgency in their core. They label it anxiety, chronic stress, or even depression. They seek out medical professionals. They rely on pharmaceuticals. They endlessly cycle through different therapies and self-help regimens. But what if I were to suggest that this entire experience is not a disorder at all? What if this deep-seated discomfort, this constant feeling of unease, is actually the clearest signal that you are beginning to wake up? We exist within a civilization that has gone utterly mad, yet remains blissfully unaware of its condition. We have architected a reality where the organic, natural rhythm of life has been brutally replaced by the cold, mechanical ticking of the clock and the blinding, artificial glare of corporate structures. We've convinced ourselves that the measure of happiness is the size of our possessions. That success is defined by ascending professional ladders that ultimately lead nowhere of true value. That love is about owning another person, treating them like a prized exhibit in our personal gallery. And then, somehow, we express shock that we feel perpetually anxious. But here is the critical pivot. Your anxiety is not a system bug. It is an intrinsic system feature. It functions as your deepest, intuitive wisdom, trying desperately to gain your attention, much like a smoke detector blaring, because there is, in fact, a fire. That fire is the fundamental absurdity of the life we are mandated to live. Your anxiety is the unmistakable voice of your soul declaring, "Something here is grievously, fundamentally wrong." Consider the following analogy. If you were a fish, and you were persuaded that your true place was on dry ground, would you not feel anxious? You would gasp for air, thrash around, and instinctively feel that something was profoundly mismatched. Everyone around you might counsel, just adapt. Just take these pills. Just focus on positive thoughts. Yet your very being would understand the truth. You belong in the water. In the same way, human beings are designed for a different kind of existence than the one we have manufactured. We are meant for a world where we rise when our bodies are genuinely rested, not when an electronic siren violently shatters the morning silence. Your anxiety is your inner compass, recognizing that you are surviving in a small aquarium when you were engineered to navigate the ocean. Now, this next point might sound truly counterintuitive. The mere fact that you feel anxious, that you sense this disconnection, that you perceive this deep, abiding lack, this places you leagues ahead of the vast majority of people. The reason most of humanity has successfully anesthetized themselves against the systemic madness. They have so completely adapted to this artificial environment that the discomfort of living against their nature no longer registers. They are akin to people who have worn shoes 3 sizes too small for so long that they have forgotten the sensation of walking barefoot on soft earth. They believe the constant dull ache is simply what it means to be alive. That Sunday night dread, that Monday morning malaise, that suffocating sense of being trapped in a life that doesn't fit. They mistake this for normal. But you are still sensitive enough to feel the pressure. You have not been completely dulled by the relentless routine. And this, my friend, is a profound gift, even if it feels like a heavy burden. Do you know what they use to call people who are exquisitely sensitive to toxins in their environment? Canaries. In the old coal mines, miners took these birds down because they would succumb to dangerous gases long before humans could detect them. When the canary showed signs of distress, it wasn't because the bird was defective. It was because the canary was healthy enough to perceive the poison in the atmosphere. You are the canary in the coal mine of modern society. Your anxiety is not a personal failure. It is a perfectly appropriate response to an insane situation. You are not broken. The world is broken, and you are one of the few who are still sound enough to notice. But here is where the deeper work begins. Most people, when they feel this gnawing anxiety, this sense of profound wrongness, immediately try to fix themselves. They assume, I must be the one who is flawed. They decide they must change their outlook, become more positive, or adjust their behavior. They consult practitioners who specialize in helping them adapt better to an unwell society. They take medication to numb their inherent sensitivity. They immerse themselves in distractions, endless entertainment, and hobbies. Anything to avoid feeling the uncomfortable truth that is desperate to surface. But what if anxiety is not a condition to be eradicated? What if it is a voice to be attentively heard? You see, there are two primary categories of anxiety. There is the neurotic kind, born entirely from our imagination, from obsessively worrying about hypothetical scenarios that may never materialize. This anxiety stems from residing exclusively in your head, mistaking your fleeting thoughts for reality, and buying into every fearful future narrative your mind spins. But then there is what I call existential anxiety. This is the deeper, more profound sense of friction you feel from being connected to something infinite while living in a culture that treats everything as finite and utterly disposable. This second form of anxiety, this existential unease, is not a puzzle to be solved. It is a wake-up call, demanding your attention. Let me clarify the true dynamic. When you feel anxious in our hyper-modern world, you are experiencing the friction between your authentic nature and the false persona you have been meticulously trained to embody. You are feeling the conflict between the natural, effortless flow of life and the rigid, artificial structures we have meticulously constructed around it. Imagine a river. When it flows unimpeded, it moves around rocks and through valleys with grace. But when you build walls and dams to force it into a restricted, human-defined channel, the water becomes turbulent. It crashes against the barriers. It creates immense pressure. It is desperately attempting to return to its natural course. Your anxiety is the turbulence of your own life force trying to flow naturally within an unnatural world. Most people feel this turbulence and immediately think, I need stronger concrete. I need better dams. I need to control this river more effectively. So they try even harder to conform to the system. They commit to longer hours. They accumulate more possessions. They adhere to more rules. They take more medication. They attempt to force themselves to find happiness in a life that fundamentally goes against their core spirit. But what if, instead of reinforcing the walls, you actually listen to what the river is trying to communicate? What if your anxiety is, in fact, pointing you toward your freedom? Here is a historical insight that might shock you. In traditional and indigenous societies, individuals who were highly sensitive, who experienced life more deeply than others, who seemed attuned to a reality beyond the ordinary world, these people were not institutionalized. They were honored as shamans, mystics, and healers. Their heightened sensitivity was revered as a gift, not a flaw. They were the ones trusted to feel what others could not feel, to see what others were blind to. They were the essential bridges between the visible and invisible realms. Their anxiety was never pathologized. It was honored as proof that they were in touch with the sacred. But we inhabit a culture that has systematically stripped itself of any place for the sacred. We have created a world that is strictly secular, rigorously material, and solely fixated on the superficial surface of things. And in such an environment, anyone who feels the inherent depth, who senses the pervasive mystery, who intuits that there is far more to life than meets the eye, will inevitably feel anxious. They will feel like an outsider, like they don't belong. And they are right. They do not belong, at least not to this artificial construct we have designed. But here lies the beautifuls, paradox, the very sensitivity that makes you feel like a misfit in this crazy world is the identical quality that connects you to something much larger and infinitely more real. Your sensitivity to the falsehoods around you is simultaneously your acute sensitivity to the truth that resides beneath. When you feel anxious, you are feeling the gap between what currently is and what could be. You are feeling the distance between the life you are currently living and the life you are truly meant to embody. You are feeling the tension between the person you have been taught to be and the person you fundamentally are. This gap, This distance, this tension, it is far from comfortable, but it is certainly not meaningless. It is your indispensable compass, consistently pointing you toward your authentic self. I often reflect on children and how effortlessly they live until we systematically condition it out of them. A child does not fret over being productive. They feel zero guilt for playing, for laughing, for being relentlessly curious about everything. They do not habitually check their watch or obsess over optimizing their schedule. A child lives in the present moment, not because they've mastered an advanced spiritual discipline, but because that is literally the only place life ever occurs. They cry when they are sad. They laugh when something is genuinely funny. They are delighted by simple marvels like puddles, butterflies, and empty cardboard boxes. But somewhere along the journey, we teach them that this natural state of being is incorrect. We impress upon them that life is an arduous, serious business. We train them to postpone joy, to work now so they might live later, to trade their beautiful presents for a future that is never guaranteed. Is it any wonder that as adults, we are plagued by anxiety? We have been instructed to live everywhere except where we actually are. Your anxiety is your inner child crying out, "This is not how it is supposed to be. This is just surviving, not living." And that inner child is absolutely correct. Now, I am not proposing that all anxiety is a miracle and that you should never seek professional support when you are struggling. There are times when anxiety escalates to the point that it completely paralyzes your ability to function. In those cases, skilled professional help is invaluable. But what I am suggesting is that before your first reflex is to eliminate your anxiety, you owe it to yourself to listen to what it is striving to communicate. Because more often than not, the anxiety itself is not the problem. It is the crucial messenger pointing you toward the real problem. The real problem is that we have collectively forgotten how to live. We have forgotten that work should be a joyful expression of our creativity, not merely a sentence we serve to earn a wage. We have forgotten that relationships should be centered on deep connection and love, not on fulfilling a relentless list of mutual expectations. We have forgotten that our bodies are not machines to be optimized, but living, intelligent systems with their own profound wisdom. We have forgotten that we are not separate from nature, but an essential component of it. Your anxiety is your entire body's attempt to remember what your mind has intentionally forgotten. Let me paint one final picture. Imagine yourself at a party where everyone is performing the role of having a fabulous time, but the music is deafeningly loud. The conversations are utterly meaningless, and the whole ambiance feels forced and artificial. You would rightly feel anxious in that situation, and everyone might implore you to just relax and enjoy yourself. But your anxiety would be the appropriate response. It would be your authentic self recognizing that this party is not, in fact, fun, that the joy is manufactured, that something vital is missing. Our entire civilization is that party. We have staged this elaborate production of relentless progress and manufactured prosperity. But underneath it all, something essential has been lost. We have traded the natural mystery of existence for certainties, wonder for quantifiable knowledge, and the beauty of presence for the idol of productivity. And those of us who feel anxious, we are the ones who haven't fully subscribed to the script. We are the ones who, somewhere deep in our bones, still remember what authentic living feels like. Our anxiety is our authenticity fiercely refusing to be silenced. This is why attempting to cure your anxiety without addressing the underlying cultural and spiritual conditions that generate it is akin to taking aspirin for a shattered leg. The aspirin can dull the pain, but it cannot mend the break. The break in this case is our chronic disconnection from our true deep nature. The break is our alienation from the natural world. The break is our isolation from each other and from the sacred dimension of existence. Your anxiety is not just personal, it is collective. You are feeling not only your personal estrangement, but the systemic disconnection of the entire human species from its source. We have engineered a world where the average person spends more time under artificial light than natural sunlight, where we consume food grown thousands of miles away by people we will never encounter, where we perform jobs that create things we do not understand for corporations we could not care less about, where we reside in boxes stacked on top of other boxes, surrounded by strangers we do not know. And then we question why we feel anxious, why we feel depressed, why we feel like a vital piece is missing. What is missing is life itself, real life. Not the sterile imitation of life we've been marketed, but the actual, messy, profound experience of being a living organism on a living planet. But here is the kernel of hope in this realization. The very fact that you feel this anxiety, this restlessness, this insistent sense that something is off, it means your authentic self is still very much alive. It means you have not been fully programmed into submission. It means there is a part of you that still vividly remembers what real living feels like. Your anxiety acts like a homing beacon, relentlessly pointing you back to your true home. That true home is not a geographical location you can pinpoint on a map. It is a state of consciousness. It is the state of being fully present, fully alive, and unapologetically yourself. And you can access this state anywhere, at any time. You do not need to overhaul your entire life overnight. You simply need to begin listening to what your anxiety is whispering to you and start making small, intentional movements in the direction it is indicating. Perhaps that means spending more time immersed in nature. Perhaps it means courageously saying no to commitments that drain your essential energy. Perhaps it means initiating more honest, vulnerable conversations with the people you love. Perhaps it is finding work that genuinely feels meaningful. Perhaps it is simply slowing down enough to truly taste your food, to deeply feel your breath, to genuinely notice the color of the sky. The path back to authenticity is unique for every single person, but it always begins with the same foundational step: paying attention to what is truly happening inside you right now, instead of immediately trying to fix, change, or improve it. Your anxiety is not your foe. It is your friend, your guide, your inner compass. It is the part of you that still flawlessly distinguishes between what is real and what is fake, between what nourishes your soul and what starves it. So, the next time the wave of anxiety washes over you, instead of immediately trying to make it vanish, try this. Sit with it. Feel its presence in your physical body. Ask it clearly what it is attempting to convey to you. Listen to its message without judgment. You might just discover that your anxiety is, in fact, excitement in disguise. Excitement about the imminent possibility of living differently. Excitement about the potential for a more authentic, unguarded life. Excitement about finally reconnecting with your true, essential self. Or you might discover that your anxiety is grief. Grief for the parts of yourself you have been forced to hide or deny. Grief for the beauty of the natural world that is rapidly diminishing. Grief for the vital connections we have lost in our frantic rush toward progress. Both excitement and grief are utterly natural responses to waking up in a slumbering world. They are the clear evidence that you are becoming more conscious, more alive, more real. And in a world that often seems to be sleepwalking toward peril, consciousness is exactly what we need. We need people who are awake, who can still feel, who have not fully numbed themselves to the intense beauty and the profound pain of existence. Your anxiety may be deeply uncomfortable, but it is also powerful evidence that you are still alive in ways that truly matter. It is proof that your soul has not abandoned you, that your deepest self is still fiercely fighting for expression. So, Do not be so quick to pathologize your discomfort with the status quo. Do not be so eager to adjust yourself to an unjust world. Your anxiety might just be your own sanity striving to rescue you from going insane. The question is not how to stop feeling anxious in a world that has completely lost its way. The question is how to harness that anxiety as fuel for finding your way back to life. How to let it guide you toward what is real, what is true, and what is vitally alive. Because in the end, you are not anxious. You are awake. And the world is desperately waiting for more people who are awake.